Good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of Before Coffee. It is Thursday, 14th of December, and we are going to be covering news. That's what we're going to be covering it. We're going to be talking about it. I'm mostly focusing on AI, so AI is at it again as usual. Let's go ahead and get into today on Before Coffee. Serbians dreaming of EU membership feel betrayed by Vucicic's government.
Election news. New York's High Court orders new congressional maps redrawn.
Violating and dehumanizing how AI deepfakes are being used to target women.
Business news. Asian shares are mostly higher after the Dow hits a record high.
What a wonderful life after death. AI brings Jimmy Stewart's voice back for a Christmas bedtime story.
All right, Mr. Potter. Those stories today, which is National Bouillabaisse Day, December 14th, 2023 on Before Coffee.
Okay, first news story here from Serbia. This is from Euronews and AP. Pro-Western democracy activists in Serbia said that they feel betrayed by the EU for failing to act to prevent or punish the autocratic turn of President Aleksandar Vucic's government. 10 years after Serbia began talks to join the European Union, pro-Western democracy activists in the country said they feel betrayed by their government. Predrag Vostinic, a 48-year-old activist, has founded a grassroots movement in the Balkan nation as a way to fight back against the rising authoritarianism of President Aleksandar Vucicic's government, its corruption, and the organized crime gripping the country. The movement has led weekly protests against Vucic as part of a wider calling for the president to step down following two deadly mass shootings on May 3rd and 4th that shook the nation. Which I believe we actually covered, because I remember having to pronounce this name and probably still pronouncing it wrong. 9 students, a school guard, were killed in the first shooting when a 13-year-old opened fire at an elementary school in central Belgrade. Another 8 people died in the second shooting committed by a 20-year-old using an automatic weapon in 2 villages south of the Serbian capital. Protesters accuse Vucic of fueling hate, intolerance, and violence in the country, claims that Serbian president has denied. But protesters like Vostinic are facing threats in the streets and on social media, while government opponents have been sidelined at work or field from their jobs at state-run companies. And while there's anger and disappointment towards the Serbian government, democracy activists like Vostinic also blame the EU for not stepping up to stop Vucic's leadership from taking an autocratic turn, taking control of the national media, and installing loyalists in key government positions. This is one of the reasons why the EU is losing credibility, and why the pro-European part of the Serbian society is in a defensive position, because there's nothing to defend, said Vladimir Medjak, deputy head of the European movement in Serbia and former member of the EU membership negotiation team. The problem, Medjak said, is that the Vucic's government is Vucic's government's autocratic turn happened during under the EU's watch. The EU, which has found Serbia's membership bid problematic both for the country's economic situation and the controversy at the border with Kosovo, whose independence Belgrade doesn't recognize, has not pushed Vucic for his autocratic turn. Even when Serbia refused to join the Western sanctions against Moscow, the EU didn't push the country away. Both the EU and the US have worked closely with Vucic to try to reach a deal with Kosovo, which tensions have boiled up in the past year. In recent years, Serbia has sought stronger ties with Russia and China despite declaring EU membership one of its strategic goals. At the moment, some 40% of Serbians support EU membership in their country. Vostinic said that the democracy activists in Serbia are so disappointed with the EU that we who support the respect of the European values are starting to feel uneasy. Dragan Đilas, a former mayor of Belgrade who is now one of the leaders of a pro-European coalition that is challenging Vucic's Serbian Progressive Party in parliamentary and local elections on December 17th, is even more critical of the EU. EU politicians largely are allies of Alexander Vucic, he said. As a student, my dream was Serbia as part of the European Union. I have to admit that now the dream's sometimes turning into a nightmare. So, strength out there for all the people in Serbia who are slowly losing any trust in any system that controls the world, as a lot of people are these days. Oh, they're just gonna let things pass on by. Who needs ideas and standing up for things when you can just try to be friends with everybody and let them walk all over you? That's how it feels these days. Your story.
Okay, and election news, which I'm not a big fan of reporting on politics when there's really nothing going on, but hey, we have a decision by the New York State Supreme Court that's going to affect the future election, and the balance of power in the House of Representatives is currently 216 to 212 or something like that was the vote yesterday for the impeachment inquiry, which I'm not going to report on that nonsense, but Republicans are going to have a inquiry to impeach Joe Biden for, loaning money to his son. Wow. Anyway, that's where we are, and that's why this party has got to go. So this is an important decision, but this is a decision by the New York Supreme Court, and this is a story by Anthony Zaguire of Associated Press. New York's highest court on Tuesday ordered the state to draw new congressional districts ahead of the 2024 elections, giving Democrats a potential advantage in what is expected to be a battleground for control of the U.S. House. The 4-3 decision from New York's Court of Appeals could have a major ramifications as Democrats angle more favorable district lines in the state next year. Republicans who won control of the House after flipping seats in New York so have to keep this map in place. The state's bipartisan independent redistricting commission will now be tasked with coming up with new districts, which will then go before the state Democratic-controlled legislature for approval. The court ordered the commission to file a map no later than February 28th. In 2014, the voters of New York amended our Constitution to provide that legislative districts be drawn. 2014. Districts be drawn in an independent redistricting commission. Chief Judge Rowan D. Wilson wrote for the majority. The Constitution demands that process, not districts, be drawn by courts. That the process, not districts, be drawn by court. The ruling is an early but important step in Democrats' plan to retake a handful of congressional districts in New York, seen as vital to winning a House majority. Today's decision is a win for democracy, and particularly the people of New York. We are eager for the independent redistricting commission to get back to work to create a new, fair congressional map through the process of New York voters instead, said Rep. Suzanne Delbene, chair of the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. Democrats sued to have last year's maps thrown out after their party lost seats in New York suburbs and handed control of the House to Republicans. The case came to the Democrats in the state bungled the redistricting. The case came after Democrats in the state bungled the redistrict processing for the 22 election. Along with that, many considered political miscalculations at the top of the state ticket drew blame for the party's loss in the Senate. Now, why does a state controlled by Democrats have such a poorly drawn, gerrymandered state district map that favors the Republicans? The maps used last year was supposed to be drawn by the state's independent redistricting commission, but the commission, which is made up of an equal number of Democrats and Republicans, failed to reach a consensus and eventually gave up, which of course favored the Republicans because now they control the House and they got Mike Johnson in charge. The state legislature then stepped up and drew its own map, which was set up in a way to give Democrats a major edge by cramming Republican voters into a few super districts, diluting GOP voting power in the rest of the state. A legal challenge stopped the Democrats' map from moving forward, and the Court of Appeals ruled that the state didn't follow proper procedure in adopting the maps. Instead, the court had an independent expert draw a new set of lines that, along with strong turnout from the GOP, led the Republicans flipping seats in New York City suburbs and winning control of the House in 2022. Democrats then filed their own lawsuit to stop last year's maps from being used in 24, with the case going all the way to New York's highest court. They argued that the court-drawn map was never meant to be used in more than one election, that the state's bipartisan redistricting commission should have another opportunity to draw the maps. Republicans have argued that districts are politically balanced, they should not be discarded. We are disappointed, but not surprised, by the court's decision to allow the Democrats a second attempt to gerrymander the maps. So instead, we're going to stick with our gerrymander. Instead of focusing on policies that appeal to everyday voters, Democrats are trying to cheat. They're not trying to cheat. The New York Supreme Court threw it out, man. Democrats have dedicated a major financial and campaign resources to retake districts in New York next year. Republicans are aiming to hold on to the seats. Famously, of course, New York is where George Santos is from, and without those maps, well, maybe he still would have got elected. But again, the Democratic Party of New York seems grossly incompetent for letting him run for not one, but 2 cycles and as the Republican nominee for a seat in the U.S. House of Representatives, and they completely ignored the fact that he was completely lying about everything until a reporter discovered it after he'd been elected. So get your act together. Now that the state Supreme Court has given you a chance to write a real map, get your act together. Back to you.
Wow. Hey, you can't get in trouble if you don't get caught. That's the number one rule of corrupt politicians.
No, nobody's corrupt there. They just drew a map that favored.
Yeah, I guess. Okay. Let's talk about AI, because that's what we're going to be talking about, and how people are using AI to do evil things. And unethical things, even. Evil, good or evil, who cares? It's unethical. Ocean Dubois, Thomas Duthois, Matthew Ash, and Estelle Nissan-Julian are covering what experts describe as using a person's image to create deepfakes using artificial intelligence without their consent as dehumanizing. Deepfake technology has soared in popularity over the last few years, and it's never been easier to make them, with people able to doctor video or audio in hyper-realistic ways. Just a few pictures of someone's face are needed to create deepfakes. That's why you should not be doing those really weird, like Facebook things where it's like, show you a picture from you from 10 years ago and then a picture from you today, because those images are being used to train AI. Just letting you know, if you do any of those social media trends where you have to face your picture, you're training an AI to basically make your face. Some use it for fun, as it is the basis for face swap apps and multiple filters on social media. But there are also several malicious uses, from fake videos of politicians to scams. Women, of course, are particularly targeted by deepfake pornography, which is often broadcast without consent. In 2019, Deep Trace, a company specialized in artificial intelligence AI, estimated that porn made up 96% of deepfake videos, the vast majority created without the consent of the featured person. This is violating, this is dehumanizing, and the reality is that we know this could impact the person's employability. This could impact the person's interpersonal relationships and mental health, said Noelle Martin, an activist and researcher at the University of Western Australia who has dealt with image-based abuse for 10 years. In one of the most recent cases, teenage girls as young as 11 were targeted, and the pictures were shared with their high school classmates via social media. The phenomenon of deepfakes was first observed in 2017 on specialized forums like Reddit, with female celebrities targeted due to large amounts of images available on the web. One of the most disturbing trends I see on forums of people making this content is that they think it's a joke, or they don't think it's serious because the results are hyper-realistic, not understanding that for victims this still is really painful and traumatic. Henry Adger, an expert on generative AI, said. But now, as the technology becomes more widely available, all women are concerned with serious risk of social and psychological repercussions. It's horrifying and shocking to see yourself depicted in a way that you didn't consent to, said Martin. The reality is, we know this could impact a person's employability. This could impact a person's interpersonal relationships and mental health, she added. Sometimes, deepfakes are made in a way to discredit the work of women. Activist Kate Isaacs and journalist Rana Ayub were both victims of smear campaigns using deepfakes due to their professional activities. Moreover, it's not easy to detect the deepfake, especially as the technology improves. Realistically, the individual and the naked eye of the individual is not just going to be as reliable as a marker for spotting fakes. You know, even now, but particularly moving in the future as to outputs to get better quality, said Adger. The outputs get better in quality. In a recent public service announcement from the U.S. Federal Bureau of Investigation, or the FBI, as most people know it by, it said they continue to receive reports from victims, including minor children and non-consenting adults, whose photos or videos were altered in explicit content. There are even cases in which deepfakes porn were used to extort people. As of April 2023, the FBI has observed an uptick in sextortion. I love, why do they make that into a fun combo word? Oh, sextortion. Sextortion. Victims reported the use of fake images or videos created for content posted on their social media sites or web postings, provided to the malicious actor upon request or captured during video chats. The announcement reads, hard to detect, deepfakes are also hard to prosecute, as lawmakers attempt to play catch-up with the technology. At the end of 2022, the UK's Ministry of Justice said that sharing deepfakes without the person's consent could result in imprisonment. Taiwan has also implemented a similar bill. In Europe, the Digital Services Act, DSA, doesn't address this issue of non-consensual deepfakes. However, the EU AI Act, which we've already talked about, which is being drafted and being negotiated, should provide a more robust legal framework. In the United States, several states, including California, Texas, and Virginia, have made non-consensual deepfakes a criminal offense. There has to be some sort of global response from government, law enforcement, and from people on the ground, victim communities. So there is an accountability for people where they can't just ruin someone's life, get away with it, and face no repercussions, said Martin. Yeah, this is a really serious issue, of course. And something I always think about, oh, what if somebody tries to blackmail me? And the only thing I think of is don't let them. Just, oh, you're trying to blackmail me? I don't care.
Yeah,
that's the only thing I can think of doing about it, because you can't say, oh, this is fake. You can say this is fake all you want, but people have to believe you.
Yeah, blackmail only works if you've done something wrong, quite frankly.
Yeah.
You can frame me, but it doesn't mean anything to me. You're just playing a game. Well, at least what we have for intelligence here, as we like to say, is not artificial. What intelligence we have is real. Very small amount of it we have here. This is my story?
Yep, your story.
Okay, so I got two stories because the first one's kind of short. Stock market today, Asian shares are mostly higher. This is another AP story because I'm lazy. And everybody else seem to be repeating the same stupid headline that I didn't want to cover. Just like stupid crap they cover all day, every day on the news. This is from Elaine Kurtenbach, but it's basically just reporting on news that anybody could. Shares are mostly higher in Asia after a powerful rally across Wall Street sent Dow Jones Industrial Average to a record high, as the Federal Reserve indicated that interest rate cuts are likely next year, not this year. But just telling them next year we're going to cut rates is enough to get the bull market going again. Tokyo's Nikkei 225 fell, however, as the yen gained sharply against the U.S. dollar, since a weaker U.S. dollar can hit the profits of Japanese exporters when they are brought back to Japan. A lot of things to consider. The Nikkei lost 1% to 32,594, while the dollar slipped from about 145 yen to 141.42 yen, its lowest level in 4 months. The value of the dollar tends to mirror expectations for interest rates, which affect returns on certain kinds of investments. Toyota Motor Corp shares fell 4.2, and Sony lost 2.3. Honda shed 5.2. Elsewhere, Asia, Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index climbed 1.1% to 16,408, and Shanghai Composite was up 0.3% to 2,977. The World Bank report forecasts that Chinese economy will post a 5.2 annual growth this year, but that it will slow sharply to 4.5 in 2024. The report said the recovery of the world's second largest economy from the setbacks of the COVID-19 pandemic was still fragile. Australia's shares jumped 1.6%. The Kospi and Seoul advanced 1.1. India's Sensex was up 1.1. On Wednesday, the Dow jumped 512 points, or 1.4, 37,090. The S&P rose 1.4 to win the reach of its own record, closing at 4707. And the Nasdaq Composite also gained 1.4 to 14,733. Those numbers are basically just references to yesterday and don't really mean anything in real world dollars. In a press conference yesterday, Fed Chair Jerome Powell said its main interest rate is likely already at or near its highest peak. He acknowledged, however, that the inflation is still too high. Powell said Fed officials don't want to wait too long before cutting the federal funds rate, which is its highest level since 2001. We are aware of the risk that we would hang on too long before cutting rates. We know that it's a risk, and we're very focused on not making that mistake. Inflation is now at a level of, it does not say on this article, but inflation is lower than it's been in a long time. And another article, we have a short article. In a remote Canadian town hosts passengers from diverted Delta flight. This is from New York Times, Lydia Albeck-Bripka. Canadian province known for its warmth and hospitality, showing that thousands of airline passengers diverted after September 11 attacks, has again hosted hundreds of surprise visitors, this time because of what Delta Airlines described as a mechanical issue with one of its planes. The company said the flight, which left Amsterdam on Sunday afternoon, was bound for Detroit and was forced to land in Happy Valley Goose Bay, a town of about 8,000 people in the northeastern province of Newfoundland and Labrador, after the engine de-icer stopped working. The 270 passengers, 3 pilots, and 7 flight attendants all spent the night in an army barracks in the town, a Delta spokesman said by email. Crew duty times were impacted due to the weather and runway conditions at the Goose Bay Airport, causing the airport to suspend operations, he said, noting that Delta sent additional aircraft to the airport to transfer the passengers to Detroit on Monday. We apologize to customers for this inconvenience. On social media, some passengers described an ordeal in which they waited more than 10 hours on a tarmac as weather conditions deteriorated and they waited for another place to collect them. Wildest emergency landing, wrote one person. Another pleaded, please send rescue. Yeah, right, somebody's going to send a rescue. Trevor Wilson, a passenger traveling home from a work trip in Europe, said in a phone interview that he had first noticed that something was wrong when the flight path of the screen and the seat back front of him appeared to show a hairpin turn. Oh shit, we're turning around. Shortly after that, the crew members told passengers about the problem with the de-icer, said Mr. Wilson. After waiting on the airplane for several hours, he said passengers were moved into a second plane bound for Detroit, but were then informed that the crew's overtime meant that they could no longer operate the plane legally. The passengers were then given pizza, he added, and taken to Army barracks for the night. Delta spokesman said that the company had worked with the officials in Goose Bay to arrange the food, water, and accommodation and would accommodate customers for their experience, but declined to get into specifics. In 2001, the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration, said it would investigate the diversion. In 2001, thousands of airline passengers were stranded for days in Newfoundland and Labrador after dozens of planes were diverted into the province after the September 11 attacks in the United States. The majority of those planes were diverted to Gander, a town in northeastern Newfoundland, whose benevolence during the global crisis inspired the award-winning musical Come From Away. Mr. Wilson, the passengers on a Delta plane, said they thought of the musical almost instantly when they learned of the diversion to Canada. This is a tiny town, and the people there, they just really wanted to help us out, he said, noting that the locals had helped ferry the passengers on buses and made them hot chocolate. He added, everybody was super, super, super nice. When we learned of a mistake, we acknowledged it. Okay, that's it. That's the end of that story. Back to you.
Okay. Well, back to AI. As Jimmy Stewart has been brought back to life. Well, his voice has been brought back to life. Okay. To read a a Christmas bedtime story because instead of somebody new just reading a bedtime story and trying to make their own name for themselves, we've got to, I guess, pull into our nostalgia. And, oh boy, I really miss Jimmy Stewart reading me my bedtime story, so I better pay an AI to make it. This is from Anka Ulia. This is a really short section, but I thought it was important to talk about. 26 years after his death, the beloved It's a Wonderful Life actor can be heard reading a brand new Christmas bedtime story with a little help from AI. It looks like It's a Wonderful Life for Jimmy Stewart even decades after his death. The beloved Hollywood actor, known for his role in the 1946 holiday classic, It's a Wonderful Life, can be heard reading a brand new bedtime story on the meditation app Calm, 26 years after his death. The tale, called It's a Wonderful Sleep Story, was produced by Calm in collaboration with Ukrainian-based Respeecher, which was able to clone Stewart's voice using generative AI. Respeecher has previously done projects recreating other iconic voices like Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader. To clone Stewart's voice, the company said it relied on a few dozen minutes of existing recordings to train its system, and then blended those samples with a recording done by a voice actor. The final product is uncanny, with Stewart's signature croon reverberating over a backdrop of sparkling Christmas cheer. Well, hello, I'm James Stewart. Well, you can call me Jimmy. Stewart's reconstructed voice begins. Tonight I'm going to tell you a story. It's a heartwarming story of love, of loss, and hope, and a joy, but most of all, it's a wonderful sleep story. The voice cloning was done with Stewart's family's blessing. So, it's not his blessing. I really hate this, okay? Let me go on a small rant here since it's such a short article. I hate when you're a famous person and you die, and then your family is allowed to give your consent for you to be used after your death. I think that should be illegal. I think there should be a law that says no one, I don't care if it's your freaking clone of yourself, can actually give your consent for anything that belongs to you that would require your consent as a live person be given after you've died. I don't think that should be allowed in any scenario ever, okay? I think it's fucked up. I think people who are dead should stay dead because death is an important thing that happens, okay? And constantly kind of overriding its importance by saying, well, it's okay because we can bring him back with AI is just completely pointless. I don't like it. I think death should be treated as an important step in people's lives and should not be overwritten by, well, that's okay because my daughter gave them permission to reuse my voice and reuse my image, and you can see Jimmy Stewart, I don't know, in color for the first time ever as they create him through a freaking deepfake or something. I just don't want that. I just don't want that for anybody. I don't care who it is. His daughter Kelly Stewart Harcourt said in a calm statement provided to CNN that it's amazing what technology can do and wonderful to see Dad's legacy live on this holiday season in new ways, like helping people find restful sleep and sweet dreams. I think his legacy should be you, Kelly, and that's where it should end. That's why you were born. Most people have children to create a legacy. They don't go to AI so that they can never die. The bedtime story featuring Stewart's voice is a festive addition to Calm's series of sleep stories, which are meant to help users wind down from their day so they can fall into a restful sleep. Why don't you just watch A Wonderful Life in the background instead of listening to AI create? I don't understand. It's a wonderful sleep story. It's a new but timeless tale of hope and kindness brought to life by Jimmy Stewart's iconic voice, Calm wrote in an Instagram post. Stewart's acting career spanned over decades in 80 films, including Rear Window and Vertigo, directed by Alfred Hitchcock. It's a Wonderful Life. Stewart plays the businessman George Bailey, whose deep despair has brought him to consider ending his life on Christmas Eve. I would say he was a banker, not a businessman, but whatever. Instead, George is visited by a guardian angel who shows him all of the lives he's touched and what the world would look like if he had never been born. Today, the film is considered one of the best movies of all time. Stewart died at the age of 85 in 1997, just 6 years after shooting his final film. If you miss Jimmy Stewart, go watch all his films. I think that's more useful to his legacy than any sort of generative AI that creates his voice with the help of a voice actor.
Philadelphia story.
Yeah. But that's the end of my story. On to this day in history.
I think the real shame is at the start is that the article said he's known for It's a Wonderful Life. Well, actually, during his lifetime, he wasn't known for It's a Wonderful Life. He's known for a lot of different films. He's known for Harvey the Rabbit. He's known for, like you said, Rear Window. He's known for Philadelphia Story with Katharine Hepburn and what's his name? I can't think of his name. Not Gregory.
No idea. I'm sorry.
Cary Grant. Philadelphia Story. Anyway, this day in history, as AI continues, I'd actually, you know what I want to hear read a bedtime story is Christopher Walken. If they can do that, I want to hear that. This day in history, 867, Adrian II was elected Roman Catholic Pope. In 1503, French astrologer and physician Nostradamus, the most widely read seer in the Renaissance, was born. So Nostradamus, birthday. 1568, the casket letters found to be damaging to the career of Mary, Queen of Scots, were produced at the Westminster before the body of English commissioners appointed by Queen Elizabeth II, her cousin. 1799, George Washington, the first president of the United States, died at the age of 67. George only got 67 years. 1890, but they were event-filled. He started a country. Did you do that? Huh? Did you do that? Did you start a country? Huh? No, you didn't. 1895, George VI, another George, who became the king of the United Kingdom on December 11th, 1936, following the abdication of the throne by his brother Edward VIII. Well, he was born on this day in 1895. 1960, the convention establishing the Organization for the Economic Cooperation and Development was signed by 18 European countries, the United States, and Canada. Of course, this site I use is Encyclopedia Britannica, and they use the British spelling for every word. I just noticed that again. 1979, British punk band called The Clash released his breakthrough album, London Calling. All right, the best rock and roll album of all time. I'm serious.
Big words, big words.
I'm serious, man. 19 tracks, and tell me there's a couple in there maybe I won't listen to, but not too many. Not too many. I can listen to the whole album straight through, no problem. Even after all this time. And I know every song. Anyway, 1985, Wilma Mankiller became the first woman ever to serve as chief of a major Native American tribe when she was sworn in as principal chief of the Cherokee Nation. As far as we know, she was the first one. We have no records of anything for white people showed up.
Yeah.
1993, the dramatic film of Philadelphia, directed by Jonathan Demme and starring Tom Hanks and Denzel Washington, had its world premiere. It was the first major Hollywood film to address AIDS crisis, and Hanks won an Oscar for his performance. So Tom Hanks played a real person, and then next year he won an Oscar for playing Forrest Gump. So he's famously won back-to-back Oscar. 2012, the mass shooting in New York, Connecticut left 28 people dead. Newton, Connecticut left 28 people dead, including 20 children from Sandy Hook Elementary School. A 20-year-old shooter. Who cares about what his fucking name was? 2013, Irish actor Peter O'Toole captivated audiences and performances that showed his versatility in roles ranging from classical drama to contemporary farce during his 7-decade stage screen career. Died at the age of 81. So Peter O'Toole died at this day in 2013. Our featured event, Roald Amundsen's arrival at the South Pole. That's right. One of the greatest figures in the history of solar exploration was Norwegian explorer Roald Amundsen, who left Norway for Antarctica in June 1910, and on this day, 1911, became the first person to reach the South Pole. So it took him about 6 months. He left in the dead of Antarctic winter and got there in the middle of summer. Our feature biography is Tycho Brahe, a Danish astronomer. Brahe. Is it Brahe? Yeah. Tycho Brahe. I can't read. He was born on this day, December 14th, 1546, in Knudstrup, Denmark. Died October 4th, 1601, aged 54, in Prague, which is in Serbia, I believe, right? Used to be in Yugoslavia. So. Or Czechoslovakia. That's where it's Prague. Where's Prague? You tell me, you're European.
Wait, you don't know where Prague is?
Czechoslovakia, right?
Czechia.
Yeah.
Specifically.
Yeah, Czechia, our Czech Republic. There you go.
Yeah.
It's early, man. It's early. All right, birthdays today. George VI, we already hit on it. It's BKS Iyengar, the Indian teacher. 1924, birthday of Raj Kapoor, Indian actor and director. 1935, Lee Remick, American actress, was born on this day. And Dilma Rousseff, president of Brazil, was born this day, 1947. And what is this day? This day is Monkey Day. That's right, it's Monkey Day. So get your monkey out. Get your monkey out and have some bouillabaisse, because it's National Bouillabaisse. It's that big old fish soup that's just full of savory goodness. It's National Alabama Day, and it's Martyred Intellectuals Day. So if you're a martyred intellectual out there, you're not watching the show, you're dead. But if you're an intellectual, there's a chance you might be watching the show by accident because you can't figure out how to shut off your TV or your computer or something. It's just playing.
Let's not have any more martyred intellectuals today.
You're going to martyr yourself just for that reason. But anyway, that's what it is. It's Martyred Intellectuals Day, and you have a bunch of those that went to jail for saying, hey, the government's full of shit, but saying it in the wrong way.
Hey, the government's
Your story.
full of shit.
And that's it for today, which is December 14th, 2023, on Before Coffee.
All right. And just to say, Just a Ray of Trans Sunshine thinks that you are very wholesome. So there you go. You've been complimented. Let me find this. Here we go. Okay. Oh, I forgot to load the mic drop. Okay, here we go.
I haven't swore today, so I guess I am also. Right.
This has been Allison here from the Netherlands, covering all our news on AI and governments being governments. We will see you tomorrow on Friday to tie everything off and for the weekend. So we'll see you then. Here is your mic drop moment.
People question my patriotism, that I don't look American enough. They could not get over this face. I want to show you something. I want to tell you, because I'm not afraid. I don't have to live in fear, intimidation, or insults. I'm 69 years old, and I'm going to show you what patriotism, the questions about patriotism looks like. Here is my proof. This is sustained from my service in the U.S. military. Now, is this patriot enough?
Be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and notify buttons, and follow our other channels, Toxic Alley, History of Gravy, and Scratchy Old Records.